And I have a pleasure to welcome you to this questions and answers session concerning the ongoing call that we have. And as a reminder, so in this call, we do search for regular development projects and also capitalization projects. And the deadline when the call is closing is in March the 17th. And in today's session, we focus on those questions that we have received from you. And then you also have a possibility to raise up questions during the event through chat. And still, I want to remind you to keep the microphones closed during the session when you are not speaking, so we avoid difficulties with the voice. And then to also note that this event is recorded. But having said that, so I give the floor to Henna, Jarkko, and Nico to discuss and present and discuss about the questions that we have received. Please, Henna first.
Thank you. So as Marco already said, the idea is to go through the most frequent questions and common problems. If you have any questions, basically raise your hand or ask in chat, so we will take your questions then. We will talk about at least money, decision-making and the contracting process, the content of the project and submission of the application. And let's start with the money. That is something that always interests people. It is mentioned in the guidelines that the minimum amount of grant for a development project is 50,000 euros. But how about the maximum amount? What is a realistic budget for a development project? And Jarkko, could you please answer this question?
Yes, good morning for everybody. From my side also, yes, this maximum question is very interesting because usually only the heaven is the maximum. But now when we have a restricted period, very restricted period for this call, we should remember what could be the realistic amount of money to spend to this kind of project when the duration is approximately 1 year. So I would say that up to 200,000 euro it would be very okay. But if your project will go over 200,000 total budget, then maybe could be useful to think whether it is realistic to implement project with such a large amount of money. Maybe Henna, you can continue with your comments if you have any.
Yeah, I could point out that keep in mind that we are now giving money that comes from the projects, already contracted projects. So this is the money that has not been used, even it has been contracted. So we would not like to see that happening at the end of 2023, that there is again money coming back. So keep the budget realistic and do not over budget.
And I also would like to point it out that cost efficiency, which is also one point when evaluating these applications. So pay attention to cost efficiency.
Yeah, definitely. Then another thing about money are the prepayments. We now have development and capitalization project, and as Jarkko already mentioned, and as you probably already know, these are very short projects. So how will the prepayment work, Nico?
Okay, good morning to all. Well, like during this program, there are the prepayments, and concerning this call, the main rule is that 80% is being paid as a pre-finance after the grant agreement has signed by the managing authority and lead partner as previous ones. But in some cases, the prepayment could be divided half, so 40 and 40% of the grant. And in those cases, this 40% is linked with the project update, and these things will be sorted out during the negotiation phase. And as a main rule, the last 20% of the grant is paid after the final report has been approved. So it's quite normal procedure.
So to summarize, we will have prepayments both for the capitalization and development projects.
Yes.
Then it has been asked if there will be an audit in the capitalization project, and the answer is no. The payments of the capitalization projects are based on the realization of the outputs. So in the capitalization project, there won't be neither financial reporting nor an audit. So this is a good to keep in mind. And let's go from money to decision-making and the contracting process. The monitoring committee meeting is foreseen to take place in June. So you will get the information if your project has been approved or not in June. But what will happen after that? How will the contracting process work? Jarkko, could you tell more about that?
Yes, contracting process for development with development project applications and projects goes quite similar than before. So those who have already gone through one negotiation process, there will be nothing new. So after we have a list of selected projects, we contact the project contact person, and we most probably have some questions related to budget and work packages, the logical structure of the project, and we ask clarifications for some points, most likely. And after you have sent us the first answers to our first questions, somehow I was muted. Maybe I talked too much. After we have received the first answers for you, we agree the meeting for the project, and then discuss all the rest questions, and then in some point we have consensus of open questions, and we can go on with contracting and to sign the grant contract. When we talk about the capitalization projects, the focus is understanding the outputs and the indicators measuring those outputs, and therefore of course we have to make sure about the budgetary things in advance, and that's why we have to clarify the calculation basis of the budget in advance because we accept all the costs beforehand, and that's why I think the contracting process with capitalization projects will take a little bit longer than with development projects, because we need to be we need to have more precise information about the budget and how are you going to spend the money, which purposes are you spending the project money.
And when are the grant contracts foreseen? When can the project be launched?
I don't have the crystal ball, but we expect to have first projects earliest in November. I would say maybe in very positive case we could have first project starting in 1st of October, but let's see how it goes. But in next autumn anyway.
It seems that we have a different crystal ball, because I've been saying that the first projects might be launched in October, and the optimistic scenario would be September, but probably October, November is the.
Of course, it depends on the project itself, how ready plans and budgets and things are there. So how much work we need to have with each project.
And Henna, if I may complement, so we are also contracting the amounts which are saved from the budgets during this year. So it might mean that in some cases, when these amounts are freed from the budgets during the second half of the year, then also it might mean that the contracting comes at the very end of the year.
Yeah, it's good to note that probably we won't be able to launch the contracting process with all the applicants right away, but some of you will be on the reserve list and will only get financing if money comes back from the current projects. So this is good to keep in mind. And then one point is that we will need to sign all the contracts by the end of the year. So in practice, this means that the last projects will be launched in January. So I think it's safe to say that somewhere between October, November, December, January, that will be the starting date. So there we go to the implementation period. Nico, what would you say? What is your advice for planning of the duration of the project?
Okay, so because all the projects must end till the end of 2023, so therefore the absolute maximum implementation time could be 14 or 15 in the most positive cases, but I think the 12 months sounds quite optimal. So, and the final length will be approved during the negotiation phase. And I do remind you that the last month of the project implementation should be done, all the project related reporting should be done during the last month of the implementation time. So there should be some knowledge there. And of course, because the implementation time is quite short and there wouldn't be that much time for any kind of changes during the project implementation. So during the planning process, those projects should be quite clear and simple ones, sort of a low risk projects. Jarkko and Henna, do you have any other comments?
So let's make it clear. If in the application, the duration is, for example, 14 months, but then the project is launched in January, what will happen in this case? Is it a problem?
Not necessarily, but it's just a shorter project implementation time because everything must be finished at the end of the 23. So rules are quite simple.
Of course, we have to make sure that the project can be implemented in shorter time than they have planned. So it might be problem if the, for example, 14 months is crucial for project implementation. Then maybe project plan has to be modified somehow.
Yeah, and I was thinking about those possible risks during the implementation time. For example, is the border closed or not, or is there some kind of activities that need to be done during the summer or certain kind of weather? So those kind of things should be taken under consideration when writing those applications. So keeping those sort of possible risks as minimum as possible.
So many projects has been postponed in this for now, but in the future it is not. In this goal, it is not possible.
Yeah, it's completely impossible. So the time is running out also for us. So.
So there is a question in chat. Does it mean that the project prolongation is not possible at all? And yes, basically, if the implementation period has already been set to the December 23, then prolongation is not possible. Of course, if it has been set, for example, to September, then it is possible to prolong it until December. But it is the absolute deadline, 31st December 2023, when all the activities need to be finished in all projects. And in addition, all the costs need to be paid. So this is different compared to the current projects where you can finish the implementation and still pay the cost. But with these projects, all the costs need to be paid by the end of 23.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, that the especially during this call, the final month of the implementation time should be used for reporting and all those kind of things. So because all the cost must be paid till the last day of the 23. So
Marco,
yes, indeed. This in fact comes from the regulation, which says that the eligibility period ends at the end of 23. And then after that, we have a bit more than half a year time to close the whole program, which means that it's really a short time. And therefore also the reporting has to be really compact, and all the documents have to be received really quickly from you.
Which take us to the submission of the final report.
Yeah, we have talked about this, that for the development project, it's the normal 4 months, and for capitalizations is 2 months, but sooner the better. Just send those materials and final reports when they are ready. So
yeah, and there, as Marco mentioned, we have the deadline for closing the whole program. So now we have been able to give you more time for submission of the final reports, but with these projects that won't be possible. The deadline are exact. So please keep that in mind.
Yeah, there's all deadlines also for us, so they have to be done in those dates. And of course, the final report is delivered only in promise, so no need to send any paper copies or anything like that.
Yes. So then we could go to the content of the project and once more talk about the capitalization project. Okay, before that, we can take a question from the chat because it's a money question. Please specify the amount percentage of pre-financing for capitalization and development projects. So as Nico mentioned, it is the max 20% is the final payment. This is the typical case, and then 80% if the pre-financing payment. And depending on the project, the 80% is paid at once in the beginning of the project, or it is paid in two parts, 40% when the project is launched and 40% after the project update. So definitely there won't be any financial reporting in the middle of these projects, but part of the pre-financing may be linked to the project update, and this will be decided during the contracting phase. But basically 80% prepayment, 20% final payment. Okay, so going to the content of the capitalization projects, this has been told already in the information event, and there is a short video explaining the capitalization project idea on our YouTube channel as well, but maybe shortly to summarize the idea. So capitalization project is meant for disseminating the project results further than it is possible in the current development project, and or for improving a project output to the next level. So the idea is to do something more than it was planned to do in the development project. So this means that the capitalization project is not for concluding the original project. If you have problems doing something in the development project, it is not the idea to apply for a capitalization project and there finish the activities already planned. Then the idea is neither to organize a final seminar or some kind of big event where you tell about the development project. And it is also not for extra investment. So for example, if within the project some equipment has been purchased for 3 places, then the capitalization project is not for purchasing the same equipment for another 3 places, if this is the only action in the project. Instead, the capitalization project could be for trying a concept, develop in the project in a new location, either thinking geographically or in the organization level. So basically widening the concept developed. Or then you can create or improve the model for disseminating the project results, in a way improving the accessibility of the results. Or as I already mentioned, for improving an output created in the project. So there are many ways to launch a capitalization project. And this is the first time we are trying this concept, so we are really interested to see what kind of ideas you will have. But then both in the capitalization and development projects, you need to have a specific objective. So Jarkko, could you tell us more on the defining of the specific objective? What do you need to keep in mind there?
Yes, when defining objective, the starting point is the problem. First, you have to define the problem, and I hope that as many projects as possible makes the problem tree rehearsal, which we have teached you in when we launching this program at the very beginning, and the supporting material is still in our website to be found. So those negative situations of the problem tree are converted into solutions, and when you have converted that that core problem of your project to decide the end situations, then you have found and defined your specific objective. The specific objective should be realistic and should be such that you can achieve it with your project activities and outputs. So those are the basic things. So you should have only one specific objective, and when you are formulating it, so you should remember that objective is not a verb, but it is the change. You are the desired end situation of your project. So not, for example, build a bridge, but improved traffic connections, like we have stated in our supporting material as an example. And if you like to add something, if I remember, don't miss some key points, but that is basically what specific objective is all about.
Yeah, I would also point out what Jarkko said, that the objective is not to do something, but it is to achieve something. And this is quite a common problem, that the objective is thought as doing, but you are not aiming for doing, you are aiming for the change. So please keep that in mind. And it is really important to be careful with the specific objective, because that is something that we cannot change during the contracting process. The specific objective is what it is in the application, and it cannot be changed. We can modify the project logic and the activities during contracting process, improve the logic as a whole, but we cannot change the specific objective. So be really careful with the objective.
Yes, and one thing also to remember is the elements. So each proposal has to be clearly connected as one of the elements of the priority described in the guidelines. So read guidelines carefully, and you will find that each priority there are one or two elements open now. So business priority, there are elements 2 and 4 open. So we are looking for projects fitting those elements. In cultural environment priority
Jarkko,
2 there.
Do you have that? Maybe you can read those elements out loud as well, because probably people do not remember which are the elements.
Okay.
3.
Okay, I can do that. In priority 1, the element 2 is solving or removing of the barriers hindering the cross-border economic cooperation, and element 4 is activities increasing the area's attractiveness as a target for investments. And for priority 2, cultural environment, element 2, increase of the diversity of cultural services with new forms of cross-border cultural activities, and number 3, creation of new cross-sectoral initiatives. And finally, the priority 3, there is only element 3 open, which is border areas biodiversity. So make sure that you have rewrite this one of these elements under relevance problem analysis box in the application. And if you are applying capitalization project, then the element is same as in original project. So if you don't remember that, please read your applications once again and find it there.
It's good that Jarkko mentioned the elements, because this was a common problem in the previous applications. The element is not directly asked in the application form, but it needs to be mentioned, clearly mentioned. And if it is not, then you will, there is no chance that you will get the maximum score for in the evaluation. So just write clearly that our application is linked to this and this element, and make sure that in these development projects it is linked to only these elements, one of these elements that are open in this call for proposal. Because if you link it to some other, then I don't know if it's an eligible application anymore at all. But this doesn't go with the capitalization project, as Jarkko mentioned. The capitalization is linked to the same element as the original project, but there is no harm mentioning it also in the application. Any other comments from Marco or Nico relating to the elements? Maybe not. So I think we can go to the work packages and the work package structure. This has been something that has caused us quite a lot of work in the contracting process. So how can we take the burden from there? Jarkko.
Yeah, work package. Okay, now we are talking about quite short projects, so there are no need to be so many work packages as, for example, 3 years project. So I think 2 to 4 work packages are quite good number of work packages needed for these kind of projects. And you remember that one work package will lead to one output, and work package is good to have a good compact headline which defines what are you going to do in that work package, and you can then divide each work package with subheadings for work package 1.1, 1.2, and like that, and describe more exactly about the activities which are going to happen inside that work package. And then think also roles of each partners in each work package, which whether some partner is in leading role in some work package and, for example, consulting role, informative role in some other. So think about also roles. And then defined output for each work package, which is the result of activities which are done in one particular work package. So compact descriptions of activities which leads to one output, and not too many work packages. I think those are my keywords to good work package.
Yeah, I would agree. Keep it simple. Maybe we can then go to submission of the application. And Marco already mentioned that the deadline for the application is March 17th. It was 3 p.m. if I remember correctly in the Promos system, Finnish time. And then you have 1 week for delivering the signed version, either to the managing authority in Oulu or to the Petrozavodsk branch office. And these deadlines cannot be adjusted. So keep that in mind. Then we had one question on preparing the application, can we use the ongoing project work time to prepare the application for capitalization project if the organization applies for that? Could you, Marko, say what you think about this?
Okay, thank you. Well, interesting question, and I do understand that the relevance behind that. But when thinking about the grant and that has been awarded to you, so the purpose of that grant is to give you resources to produce the outputs and reach the set objective. And having said that, I would say that the writing of a new application as such is not something that you should do with the project, with the ongoing project. But I do understand the question and the relevance of that, because in a way you are thinking how to utilize the outputs or what you have received or reached in your ongoing project. So it is in a way looking to the future, how you utilize that work. But as such, as said, so the writing as such shouldn't be done with the existing project. Writing an application, I mean.
Yeah. Submission of the application, one point that I think it's good to talk about now is that it seems that currently we are having problems in Promas, or there is a problem for receiving the login and the password for submission of the application. It seems to be so that sometimes you receive the email and sometimes you don't. So the system is a bit unstable. I have notified our service provider of the issue and asked them to fix the problem as fast as possible. If the problem continues and you can't, you are not receiving the email, then please contact us and we will see what to do. So I ask you not to give up and decide that, okay, we won't submit the application even if you are not receiving the email right away. We will find a way somehow. And this is, I'm really sorry for the inconvenience here, and this is something that definitely shouldn't be happening. But then let's go to the moment when you are submitting the application. And in addition to the application form itself, which is submitted in Promas, there are some obligatory annexes. And Nico, maybe you could tell us more about those. What is needed and what is not needed?
Yes, just a moment. I'll all the annexes are being found from our our pages. I'm just putting the link in the chat, so we can find them there. So there's this application pack. They can be found as different kind of documents. First of all, there's this guidelines for the call, and as Jarkko told you previously, you should read that very carefully. There's a lot of valuable information concerning this call. And then there's 4 different annexes. There's a budget template, logical framework matrix, partnership statement, and communication plan. Those are the only obligatory annexes that must be sent to us. So, and do remember that during this call, this budget template has been modified. So please do not use any old ones, which you have probably used during the previous calls. And these required annexes are submitted only in Promas. So when you're sending your application in Promas to us, attach all these 4 annexes with this system and send that are promised to us. After that, print the application only and sign the paper version of the application and send that to us. So there's no any need to send these annexes as a paper in a paper format to us. And please do not attach any other required annexes to the application because they are not taken account in this evaluation. So only the application and 4 annexes. Jarkko and Henna, do you have any other comments?
I think that was everything.
Yeah, the link should be working, so it's just click there and you can find all the needed material concerning this call.
Yeah, it's definitely good to keep in mind that you submit all the obligatory annexes, and as Nico said, do not send us anything else. Okay, it won't lead for rejection, but it won't be taken into account in the evaluation either. And one minor detail that could be added, the partnership statement is not needed from the lead partner, so only from the partners.
Exactly.
Okay, so those were the main questions. Does our audience have any questions at this point? If not, we can still talk about budgeting and maybe give some tips for budgeting. Nico or Jarkko, do you have any ideas here?
I don't know, do I have any tips, but I have some ideas. So as I told you before, this project will be very short. So clear and simple, and trying to minimize the risks. So because it will be some 12 months at max about the implementation time. So if there's any kind of risks, etc., there might be a need for some kind of changes, and that's time away from the actual implementation time. So try to make it simple as possible. That's my advice. Jarkko, any ideas to approve?
Yeah, maybe it's good to prepare that if there are any permissions or things like that needed in the project. So maybe it should be clear out before you start the project. What are the risks related to, for example, permissions, licenses?
Yeah. I could say what comes to the budgeting, that besides keeping the budget simple, as Nico said, it is important to make the budget clear. So it will really make the contracting process faster and easier if we do not need to ask on every line in the budget, what does it mean and how is this linked to the project? So write the budget in a way that also we who are not involved in the project preparation understand what you are planning to do. How are you planning to spend the budget? And this actually goes also to the project plan itself. Always keep in mind that the assessors and the evaluators and the contractors who are reading your application, they do not know, they are not involved in your process. So it's a different experience for them to read your project plan than it is for you and your partners. So make sure that it is understandable for the outsiders as well. There is a question relating to the submission of the application. Is the document's electronic signature accepted? And we talked about that, didn't we? Yes, and we are accepting the electronic signature as well. correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, you are
It
right.
seems
Yes, you are right. So if that is a formal way of signing the documents in the organization, so that is absolutely okay. For example, we have examples, for example, from the universities, from the Finnish side in the current projects.
okay. If no questions, then we could go back to the intervention logic still, because that is one of our favorite subjects, and maybe point out there some of the most common problems that you could avoid now that you are still preparing the logical framework matrix. There is, by the way, there is the link to the capacity building material. There is now a short video on preparing the logical framework matrix. So if the concept, you are not familiar with the concept, you can go and take a look on the video. And also, as Jarkko earlier mentioned, there is still some material from the earlier capacity building events relating to the intervention logic and problem analysis available on our websites. But Jarkko, what would you say are the most typical problems with the logical framework matrices?
Maybe we start the mantra we are always remembering that the objective activities, outputs, and objective are clearly linked to each other. So there should be clear logic between those. If you have that logic in order, then I think you have done the main work already. Of course, you should pay attention also to indicators, that they measure your success in the right way. So pay attention that you formulate and describe, formulate them right, that they will measure the change and what you have done, how have you succeeded when producing, for example, output, how you measure that the producing output has been successful and planned. Then one thing, assumptions. When we are living in COVID world and very unpredicted world, so pay attention also to assumptions. So find out those risks which are outside your own hands. And there is also that rehearsal in our previous supporting material towards the better project, where you can test when, for example, when you can test that if we make these activities and this assumption will happen, then we can produce these outputs. So assumption is something really outside of your own control, which might affect to your project, and it is good to identify those also. Henna, you can add what is in your mind.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything that Jarkko said. It may sound simple that the objective outputs and activities need to be linked to each other, but the experience has proven that it is not simple, and it is really easy to make logical mistakes there. So pay attention to that. And if there are mistakes in that logic, keep in mind that, as I mentioned earlier, specific objective is the thing that we cannot change during the contracting process. So sometimes there has been the cases where when during the contracting process we notice that there are problems with the intervention logic and it needs to be changed, where the applicants think that, okay, they are the activities that we want to keep, even they are not really linked to the objective. But that is something that we cannot do at that point, but we are keeping the specific objective, and then they are the activities that need to be changed. So also in this respect, really pay attention to the logic and make them work. And then I've noticed, or my experience is that the indicators are really those that need to be worked the most during the contracting process. So quite often the indicators do not really measure the success. And this is, I've said this tens or hundreds of times, that indicators measure success, because I think it really defines the indicators very well. So when you are defining the indicators, ask yourself, does this indicator tell if we succeeded with this activity, with this specific objective, or with these outputs or not? And this way you can create good indicators. There is a question if the LFA matrix is compulsory for capitalization projects, and it is. So all the annexes are relevant also for the capitalization projects.
And maybe to add here that for capitalization projects, as they are based on lump sum principles, so the outputs have a particular importance there, and the log frame is the place where you really can show the logic and what you are producing. So indeed, it is really important for capitalization projects.
Yeah, definitely. The outputs are really important in the capitalization project, and probably some of the indicators will basically define if you will get the money or not. So there will be some indicators that you will need to reach. These indicators will be defined in the contracting phase, but of course you need to think them already now. Yeah.
Yeah, to indicators, it would be good if they are as ready as possible in application phase already. But if it is needed, then we really are modifying those indicators in contracting phase. So, but hopefully they are as ready as possible.
And if I may come back to the question of what Henna said, that we cannot change the specific objective. So maybe to describe in a way that if you promise in the application to produce make a Ferrari, and then at the end of the day it would be only a bicycle that you produce. So it's quite a big difference there, and the idea is that the monitoring committee decides what you are producing or are planning to provide to us all, and not to change that.
So your objective wouldn't be to make a Ferrari, because that would be doing something instead of the change. So the objective would be to provide means to get from place A to place B this fast. And then eventually, if you will sort of show that, okay, we were thinking to go there by bicycle, then it's probably like, okay, it's not working.
Yeah, indeed, a good definition. So maybe I simplified a bit too much. Yes.
Even the bicycle could be much more reliable, but anyway.
Okay, so maybe we still have 4 minutes to go. So I would like to remind on the importance of planning communication as Nico mentioned, the communication plan is an obligatory annex. There is a template for it on our website, and I would like to remind you that all the points that are mentioned in the template needs to be covered in the communication plan. If they are not, then you won't get the maximum score for communication. That is one of the points that will be evaluated during the evaluation process. And what comes to the communication, I think the basic idea here is that be ambitious. I would really hope that you are not only going to draft the communication plan because you have to, but you will keep in mind that the communication is important for your project. And if nobody knows what you are doing, if nobody knows about the project results, then it's basically no point, in my opinion, to do it at all. So be ambitious with the communication. They will have comments in the chat that a Ferrari that looks like Lada would be a big change, and the change is to use Ferrari instead of BMW. So there are plenty of options really in this respect. But the idea really is that if you are promising to take us from place A to place B really fast, then you have, as we know, plenty of different options what comes to the activities. It's really rare that it's only one way that you can do something or reach the aim. So that is important, what you are aiming for, not how you are going to do it. I'm reminded in the chat that I need to tell you about the electronic signature, that signature made with Adobe Acrobat is not considered as official electronic signature. So it needs to be some of these official ways to use for the electronic signature. And then I would also like to remind you once again on the capacity building material that can be found from our website. There is the link in the chat. And I would like to remind you on the possibility for bilateral consultation if you already haven't used that opportunity. There is maybe we can get the link to the chat as well, to the Doodle calendar, where you can book 45 minutes with either Jarkko, Nico, or me to discuss on your idea and specific questions. I think that is all I have to say. We have 1 minute to go. Does anybody have anything to add?
Okay, maybe we keep the planned schedule, and thank you, Henna, thank you, Jarkko and Nico, for good answers and looking at the questions. So maybe as a conclusion, still to repeat partly what Henna has already said. So use the opportunity for bilateral meetings and utilize the helping material, and then of course make your best and prepare good proposals together with your partners. And maybe this is something to underline here, that do it together already in the planning phase, so that you have a common understanding what you are planning to do. And yes, of course, respect the deadlines. That is important. If you do not do that, then you are out of the competition. So do your best. And thank you for your participation to this event. And as said in the beginning, so this is recorded, and this recording is then found on our YouTube channel, where also the supporting material is available. So thank you everybody for participating, and have a good day.